Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics. In this video, I'll be discussing the potentially surprising decision by Boris Johnson to stick to Theresa May's plan to allow the Chinese firm Huawei to build the non-core elements of Britain's 5G system. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, in terms of what we know regarding this thorny political issue, Britain can't build its own 5G network because our government decades ago decided to kill off our tech industry, a one-time world leader. We've taken the view ever since then, quite frankly, that we're better off buying in technology and expertise. That's the way to go. So that means we need others to build our infrastructure for us. It has to be foreign companies. We also know that Huawei has been designated as high risk by the UK itself. In other words, we really shouldn't be touching it with a barge pole. Now, that's because the company is controlled directly by the Chinese state. They can demand any data that they have be handed over. Chinese companies are also known to be involved in espionage for the Chinese state. Now, the UK is part of Five Eyes, which is an international intelligence operation which includes other English-speaking powers, including, of course, the United States. The US is particularly against Britain's use of Huawei for a couple of reasons. The first one is they argue that it will make the UK an unreliable intelligence partner if we're giving the Chinese a backdoor into the group. And two, the US has tech companies, which means they could have been given the contract. Now, the US has persuaded an awful lot of Western powers not to really go along with Huawei, which is why it is, for me, surprising that Boris Johnson has, given that out of all the Western democratic world leaders, he is the one who most wants to align with the US and basically do whatever they say. So Boris Johnson, because of that gung-ho attitude about being, fully on board with whatever America wants, which is in contrast to Theresa May, who wants to maintain links with all of Britain's traditional allies. There was a piece actually written on this topic a little while ago that explained why it was that Theresa May might, against quite a lot of opposition within her own government and indeed party, have wanted to go with Huawei in a way that Boris Johnson wouldn't have done. I'll link it in the description below if you want to read it for yourself. But yeah, now we have a situation where Boris Johnson has gone, yeah, this is the way to go. So, and it's not the result of obvious political pressure. As I say, although there are some in the Conservative Party going, yeah, we should do this, there are quite a lot who are going, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This is madness. And the argument seems to be that none of the potential providers can be trusted at all. This isn't about, Huawei is high risk, therefore we should go with someone that's low risk. Apparently there isn't really anyone that's low risk. And the argument from government is that the UK knows Huawei well enough. In fact, in Dominic Raab's words, knows it better than anyone else in the world, and therefore can mitigate the risks better than with a competitor. As I say, Dominic Raab has been speaking about this. He's the Foreign Secretary, and he was also saying that the government could limit Huawei's influence with strict rules and a diverse market. Now, apparently, Huawei will be banned from the core of the 5G network. As I say, they'll be supplying what's called non-core elements of the infrastructure. And they'll also be banned from operating at sensitive sites like nuclear facilities and military bases. And, it seems that if Boris Johnson had not gone with this contract, with this decision, it's not just that it would have gone to someone else. Eventually it would have been. But it would have been delayed. The rollout of 5G in the UK would have been delayed by several years, with, of course, an obvious cost to our economy. And given that our economy is already going to be getting much more of a pounding over the next few years, I suppose the thought would have been that any unnecessary hits were probably considered not really worth it. Now, how the US responds to this will be interesting to note. They've had plenty to say over the last day or so. Given that Boris Johnson is fully on board with granting Trump his extremely damaging trade deal, damaging to us, not the US, of course, it might be that he can smooth this over by getting the president to focus on the big prize. Because at the end of the day, Boris Johnson does want this US trade deal. It allows him, as I said before, and I'll say it again, it allows him to get rid of lots of rights, like environmental protection laws, workers' rights laws in this country, deregulate the whole country, because that's basically the stipulations of the US trade deal anyway. And he could argue that he's doing this in order to get the US trade deal, which everyone apparently thinks is going to be marvellous. So he could dangle that, knowing that the US wants it as well. But there may be others in the US government who won't let it lie so easily. Now, I don't have enough technical expertise to say whether or not Johnson's plans would potentially compromise American intelligence or not, because that's what this is about. You know, if we'd given the contract to a US company, they'd still be spying on us, just for a different nation. And this isn't about whether the UK security is maintained or not. If it is one way, it isn't the other. And if we can't protect against Huawei, well, we can't protect against an American company doing the same thing anyway. The solution to that was to do it ourselves, but we don't have the expertise because we were too short-sighted to encourage homegrown tech industries. But what I am quite sure about, without having any technical expertise, is that how America proceeds will be entirely political. It is possible that this decision does genuinely represent a risk to intelligence, but that the US will keep quiet on it on the promise of the greater prize of the trade deal. The converse is also possible. It is possible that it doesn't represent a threat to US security at all, but they will still say it does to punish the UK over the awarding of this contract, depending on how lobby groups behave, I suppose, in America. I mean, ultimately, American politicians behave as their lobby groups order them to behave. The decision will have absolutely nothing to do with the protection of people or the state, whether you're talking about the people or the state of the United States or the United Kingdom. It will only be about political advantage. And it won't just be Boris Johnson against the US government. He'll face a backlash from his own backbenchers in the Conservative Party as well. Some of these don't want Johnson upsetting their real bosses on Capitol Hill. Others may have genuine concerns for security. I doubt many of them have shares in Huawei, so he won't get too many people supporting his cause, other than ministers who have to if they want to keep their jobs. So, in going with this decision, it must be quite clear that Boris Johnson is convinced that not doing so will be very costly for him politically, through economic damage to the country. He can't afford anything impeding any economic growth where it may be found, even for a few years. He only has a few years before he needs to start gearing up for another general election, and by then the country will be in an even worse state than it is now, and he'll need every favour he can get in persuading people that actually, as crap as the country is, it's going to get better if you elect him again. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.